Welcome to another Keelhauled podcast. I'm your host, Captain Logun, and we've got a lot of Sea of Thieves news to cover today, so tie yourselves to the mast and hold fast. Ahoy there, pirates. I hope you had yourselves a good week and a good weekend. I know I did. This week, we got a surprise patch a little earlier than expected with some interesting things to come to it, and I got a chance to interview Aaron Pikaaroon Nielsen from Rare, formerly a community member, one of us. It was such a long interview, though, I'm going to have to split that interview up into different episodes, so you should be getting some bonus episodes this week beyond just this episode. All that and more in this week's episode of Keelhauled Podcast. First up on today's docket, let's talk about the patch and the weekly update video that we got this last week. So, if you didn't notice, we did get patch 2.0.4, and with this came a lot of interesting changes to the game. Namely, something that I think has been very controversial with the community, as the Capstan Changes are something that I think a lot of people went too far to remove the dropping of the anchor. So if you're out there and you're in the world, the Capstan used to drop when hit by a cannonball. This is no longer the case. In fact, if you are out there and the cannons from an island or from another player hit the capstan, it will still knock off the actual pegs to raise and lower the capstan, but the capstan will not drop the anchor. And I know a lot of people, including myself, were hoping to see some kind of balance with this and not just completely remove the mechanic altogether. I did appreciate that the capstan dropping from a cannon shot was viable to stop a ship when you didn't have any cursed cannonballs, especially something in arena. However, I do think that it needed to be tweaked a little bit, as getting hit with the cannonballs on a sloop, because most of the pirates, most of the skeletons on islands tend to target either the ship or the person. With the helm being right next to the capstan on a sloop, it did tend to make it a lot more difficult for solo sloopers to survive getting hit by cannon shots from oncoming fire from islands or from skull forts, things like that. And to make it a little bit easier for them, they decided to remove the mechanic that actually drops the anchor. If this was something that I think would have done well on some testing on the insider feedback, I think this is something that would be a little bit nicer to have some number of hit requirements, kind of like with the masts, where hitting the mast 3 times is what you have to do to be able to knock down a mast or to use a powder keg on them. And same with the capstan. I think that amount of damage is kind of the sweet spot where, yes, one shot should be able to knock off some of the pegs on the capstan, but 3 shots is what's required to actually drop it. And in a sense, thinking that the cannons themselves should be weakening the strength of the capstan before it actually does fall. With it not being able to drop the anchor at all, it really does make it a little bit harder to tactically stop another ship with just cannonballs instead of just regular cursed cannonballs, especially in arena. I know that the team listens to the community and that they have the opportunity to change this at any time. So I would love to see a change or some tweaking to be done either to the AI for skeletons, which this seems to be the main complaint, is that a lot of people were having trouble with AI skeletons and dealing with the precision that they have. And this is something that they have tweaked in the past. They have tweaked the accuracy of long shots from skeletons on islands before. And if that's something that they can change in the past, then I don't see why we can't maybe take a look at the AI and how accurate it is, or what it tries to target, and see if we can work around the mechanic of the capstan damage. Understandably, it's a lot quicker to turn off the anchor to be able to drop once it gets hit by a cannon, versus trying to adjust the algorithms that make up the AI targeting for skeletons on all the different different things that skeletons can, or all the different places that skeletons can shoot from on islands and skull forts and ships and stuff like that. So I look forward to having more of an open dialogue about this change with Rare, so that we can kind of work out the pros and cons of it and see if there's other workarounds that can come in the future that we're willing to wait for, so they have time to kind of work on that development aspect of it. Some of the other changes that came in with this patch include a big change to the first tall tale in adventure mode that helps kind of make it easier for people first getting into the game. They moved the book from a barrel to a stool to make it a little more easier to kind of run up and see that it's not just a part of the atmosphere, that it's actually a tall tale and that you have to vote on it instead of accidentally trying to run up to a barrel and loot it. In the book itself, they actually made a change to some of the text as well as the clarity of these symbols for the puzzle vault to make it a little more understanding of what you should be looking for once you first get into that puzzle vault. They've also added a full map that helps you kind of navigate to that unmarked island where the Magpie's Wing is located. Something that I'm really glad to see, just kind of give people a little better understanding of the language that they're going to be using when it comes to working out these kind of puzzles. And they also went in and made some changes to the arena, which I think is something that a lot of people are pretty happy with so far. In the arena, when you were done with a match, you would typically be set up with the same crews that you were fighting before, and any crews that dropped out would get filled in as a result of matchmaking. But now, once you actually complete an arena match, you'll actually get completely new crewmates, or not crewmates. You actually keep your crewmates unless you don't want to. And in that case, you should probably get rid of them and get new friends. But you'll actually be fighting different crews in the matchmaking process. So you aren't going to be completely set up against pirates that are not to the standard that you saw last game. They'll be completely fresh, and you won't have any idea of who you should keep an eye out for or who you should go for in the arena. All right, pirates. So there are also a slew of changes that came in with this patch. So I'm going to try and shotgun through a majority of the ones that I think you'll find interesting. So Commendations for the Hunter's Call and the Sea Dogs is now live. You can find them by talking to Duke the Dark Lord and handing over 30 doubloons per level. That is a full level regardless of what rank you currently are. 2 of the barrels previously used for bananas have been removed from the sloop. I hope you appreciate the reclaimed space and head out to the IKEA Islands to pick up something that will be easy to assemble but still completely unnecessary. Feeding a pig no longer heals the player. To heal yourself, you must first kill the pig. You must then cook the meat and then eat the meat to heal yourself. Skeletons no longer appear to get their weapons stuck in their skull when switching to a banana, which now fixes their head cannon. The skeleton fort key now has the appropriate pirate chat options, which is nice because some of the things they were saying before were completely inappropriate. Players reaching the limits of the Devil's Shroud should no longer find themselves becoming stuck in server migration. They will still be stuck without a ship. Players should no longer find missing textures inside the pirate hideout tunnels beneath Ancient Spire Outpost because something isn't really missing if you found it. Players should no longer find themselves being able to swim into the air after fishing in island pools because such a thing is ridiculous and shouldn't be possible in this pirate game with magical skeletons. We can't all be Peter Pan. Skeleton captains and lords that use combat dialogue should now correctly stop speaking, screaming, or wailing once they are defeated. They still haven't learned any other catchphrases and are still thus Bond villains. I did want to take a quick moment just to mention some of the changes that I noticed on a recent adventure out to Tribute Peak and the Shores of Gold to defeat the Gold Hoarder. Thankfully, if you go out there, you will now find that some of the pirates have left behind some things that are very useful for us other pirates. Namely, the coin vault in the middle of the island where you go to typically turn in the vault coins that you get after completing each north, south, east, west vault. There is on the north side of that section a new ladder that makes it a lot more accessible to get back to the vault after completing the Kraken North Vault. I'm saying vault a lot. Vault, 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 vault. But there have also been some campfires added to the island. So if you do find yourself out there fishing for pondies, killing chickens or pigs, you can use the meat from that to cook up some meat to prepare for the eventual fights that will come later on in the Belly of Gold. Next up on today's docket, I did want to take some time to talk about some of the changes that could be lore-based that have reached the game files. Over on N13, if you've been with the game for a long time, are probably familiar with this uncharted island. It is the resting place of Merrick's ship, the Killer Whale. Something that has a couple Easter eggs on it already to do with the Merrick's journals that were leftover stories from the hunters or the Hungering Deep that came last May, or not this last May, I should say May of 2018. And some of the things that are changed over there now are a camp that has been kind of torn down rapidly, and we now know that that camp is something that belongs, well, actually, I should say we didn't know that there was a camp because there wasn't one before, but now there is, and it looks to be belonging to Merrick. There's a photo painting, there's a picture frame of Merrick and Derek, as well as a drum that is the same cosmetic as the Hungering Deep drum from the Hungering Deep campaign. There's a campfire that's broken that you can't use. And it makes me wonder if this was something that was added for future content or if this was something to kind of build up more of the lore around Merrick actually having to stay on this deserted island for longer than anticipated, setting up camp. But that's not the only thing that was changed about this unmarked island. Now there's actually a grave, a shallow grave on the island, next to, or actually underneath, a very tall dead tree. And this grave doesn't have a name or any kind of indication about who is in that grave, but it's a new addition, and I'm kind of wondering like what that has to do with the game, like who died and who was buried there, and why haven't we heard any news about that? Typically, the way Rare works with the updates to the game, these little changes that they make before content, usually revolve around the story. Before the anniversary update, some of the patches that we got added things like the Magpie's Wing, as well as the Morning Star, and names to them, so that they kind of gave you ideas of what was coming in future content. With this, there's not a whole lot to really explain, but on the Uncharted Island, on the other half of the island, there's a new ring of circles, or no, let me rephrase that. It's a new stone circle that looks like it used to be the foundation for either a building or a tower or a turret, something. It's not like something that's just normal. It's actually carved stone, something that you would expect pirates or people to use when trying to build the foundation for some sort of building. And it being in a circle suggests that it could be a few things. It could be something left over from the ancient tribes, similar to the things that you'll find over on Tribute Peak, or it could be the remnants of an old turret in the middle of the ocean that was used as a scouting tool for other for people that were in Sea of Thieves, that has since been torn down or weathered down, or however you want to explain it. And it's interesting to see that they're adding stuff to the Uncharted Island, where as a lot of the time they do stuff that is on other islands that they'll send you to for lore and for story purposes. So we've had some stuff added in the past, like some of the keystones for Tall Tales, as well as bird icons in the Devil's Roar, when there aren't actually any kind of Tall Tales that take you out to the Devil's Roar, except for the Morrow's Peak outpost. So it'll be interesting to see how these all tie together, if they do tie together in the future, possibly for future content like new Tall Tales coming to the game, now that that seems to have its own section in the Reputation pane. As well as those changes to the game, we did get some new Easter eggs. So far, the ones that we found are 4 in the world, 3 of which are from people that I actually know. The first one being Captain Balzonia got one of his screenshots actually put up as a picture frame in Sanctuary, or in the tavern in Sanctuary Outpost. It's of him sitting on his sloop looking out to a kraken that he escaped, and he says he actually has a pretty good story for that. The other one is of the Dread Pirate Doug, who is one of the main leaders for the Race of Legends that typically happens on weekends, where they have crews go out and race against each other to try and win treasure and stuff in the game. And he made a resume for his pirate, explaining like all of the different reputation and experience and things that his pirate's done. And that resume was posted a while back, and they actually took that resume and put it up as an actual tacked up piece of paper in the Golden Sands outpost that you'll find next to the fireplace in that tavern as well. And the last one that I know a person of is for Chalk Muju and all of the community members that helped donate to make sure that the model ship that she custom painted to have the rare sails and look like the rare ship, the Allegiant, that was sent out to Rare just before Anniversary Update went live. And funny enough, there's actually a really good story to that from Rare's perspective in the interview that I had with Aaron. He talks a little bit about what that was like to receive just before the Anniversary Update went live. But they went and made a miniature model version of that ship and put it in the game. And if you head out to the Finest Trading Post, you can actually see on a shelf behind the shopkeep there that there is the Allegiant model ship, as well as some paints and brushes commemorating her work on making it, as well as all of the community members that helped pitch in to have that shipped out to Rare. And if I remember correctly, the total costs for getting it expedited, shipped out there, plus protecting it and making sure that it was made it there in one piece, was somewhere between $700 and $800. So that was something that a lot of the community really came together. They got it made, or she made it in time, and she was able to get it all put together. But then we found out about how much it costs, and that was something that that actually really was miraculous to find out, just how well the community came together to donate the money to be able to get that shipped out to Rare. And to see the video that they posted about actually receiving it was great, and then to hear Aaron's story about it was even better. So that's out there. There is one more of a pirate whose kid actually was drawing some of the islands. It was Smugglers Bay, and her drawing is now in the game. And unfortunately, it's one of the few things that I didn't get to hear where this was. So I haven't gone out to go check it out myself, and I'll probably have to be talking to some friends to see if I can go find it as well, because I did get a chance to go out and visit all of these different Easter eggs in the game. And it's really kind of nice, because this was something that I got to talking with Aaron about, and you'll hear the story about it as I release the interview later on in this episode, but the other half of it as well. And it's so cool that Rare does this, that Rare actually puts these Easter eggs for community members in the game. And it's so cool to see the actual community members and what they, how awesome it is for them to find out about it and to go actually visit it and to see their reaction. Because a lot of them do tend to post their reactions on community sites, social media like Twitter and Reddit and YouTube, and streaming on Twitch and Mixer and stuff. So it's a really cool thing that Rare does this. They don't have to do it. It takes time away from Well, I should say it doesn't really take too much time away from developing it, but if they can commemorate really positive influences in the community by giving them a small little taste of immortality in the game, then go for it, because I'm totally happy with all the friends that I've been able to see over the last year and bit to get their commemoration in the game. It's been a real joy to see it. I'm trying to think if there's anything else. Yes, there is. Let's get into it. I'm going to see if I can shotgun the last few of the items on today's docket so that they're a little bit shorter and I don't spend too much time on them, because this episode is going to be long, because it does have about an hour's worth of the 2 hours, almost 3 hours worth of conversation that I had with Aaron. And like I said, he and I spoke for almost 3 hours straight about just about everything, about his gaming, about the gaming industry, about E3 and Nintendo, about Sea of Thieves, about being at Rare. I really dug deep with some of the things with him, and I had a great time. And I want to make sure that I get you guys to that, because it was a real good conversation. The things that I did want to talk about before I get you to that. Orlando, Florida is hosting Guardian Con, and there's going to be another arena invitational that is in support for St. Jude's Hospital to raise money for that, as well as giving the competing teams a chance to winning another gold-plated set of Xbox One consoles. So look forward to that. The team's going to be out in Orlando the weekend of July 5th and 6th. The 6th, ironically, being my birthday, and I will probably be streaming on the 5th. So to help kind of celebrate that, and then I'll probably be celebrating the 6th off computer, off stream. Yeah, with my wife. There was an interesting video that cropped up on Twitter that the crew of YOLO Cat 96 managed to kill a megalodon in one shot, and the way they did it was they filled a rowboat with supposedly 100 powder kegs and 3 mega kegs, which is roughly about 110 powder kegs, and they took the rowboat out into the ocean, into the path of where the megalodon was going to go. They shot it right as the megalodon passed. One giant explosion later, and a meg was dying. It was really kind of cool to watch, and I didn't get a chance to watch the full video to see just how they did it, but I got the gist of it. And if you ever want to go kill a megalodon, it's going to take some farming of powder kegs, so I would highly recommend going to Keelhauled Fort. I hear it's excellent this time of year and has plenty of powder kegs on a regular basis. Next part that I wanted to kind of hit on, if you guys got the Halo cosmetics, keep an eye out in the future, because apparently Randy Pitchford is interested in working with Rare to get some Borderlands Sea of Thieves cosmetics set up. This was something that I found on Twitter shortly after E3, when everyone was talking about the Halo cosmetics, and Randy Pitchford tagged Joe and said, hey, let's talk about getting some cosmetics done for us. And Joe was interested, and he suggested in the update video that other companies and other people inside the community wanted to get some sales and some cosmetics done for their games and their studios as well too. So keep an eye out, because we might see some more of those coming our way. Joe went on to talk about their experience at E3 and how it's kind of inspired the studio to try and approach games as a service in a certain way. Some of the things that they talked about were the number of players that are playing and how they've kind of compared themselves to other games as a service that have been long-standing, games like World of Warcraft, something that I've been very invested into for most of my life. I definitely see where they want to go with the studio. They want to make this a huge game just like one of those, and without having the MMO roots, it will definitely be hard to see how they're able to keep the story and content flowing so that they can continue to keep our interest. But Joe touched on this in the video and said that they want to work out the cadence of content, something that is coming out, to give us a better idea of when stuff is going to arrive on a regular basis, and actually suggests that there are going to be load times with the game, in a sense that you don't necessarily have to feel like you're constantly playing the game, and that if you want to take a break, that you actually have an idea of when content would be coming, so you know when a good time to jump back in to check that out is. Something that is very, very similar to the way that World of Warcraft works. A lot of people, when a patch comes out, they'll come in, they'll grind a bunch, get all the new content, work themselves up to the end game, and then after a while, the content tends to go a little stale as they're working on new content, and people will typically drop out, unsub, and then wait for the next content update to come back into the game. But since Sea of Thieves is free, we don't really have to worry about that. Let me just clarify. Sea of Thieves content updates are free for now. We don't know if they're ever going to charge for those. I don't think that they want to, and I don't think Microsoft is pushing them to do that. So for what I mean is that content updates will be available for everyone when they come out without having to pay any kind of, pass or season pass or content update things. That's what I mean by that. Some of the other things that they that came in with this last week, Mike Chapman celebrated his birthday on June 21st, and I really hope he had a good time. A lot of people were wishing him happy birthday, as well as myself. It's been a true pleasure to get to talk with him and get to spend time picking his brain and discussing ideas with him through Twitter. And he has put so much of his life and love into this game so far, and it's such a good time to be able to just wish him happy birthday. So June 21st for next year, be ready. Shelley Preston was a lead senior designer for the game. She is now a lead designer. So she actually just got a promotion. It's really awesome to see her getting a little more responsibility with the game, to be able to help kind of shape how some of the mechanics and design goes into making this game that we love. So congratulations, Shelley. It's been so great seeing you in the world and in Sea of Thieves, and be able to see all the different things that you work on with the game, and I can't wait to see how that goes in the future as well too. The last thing that I wanted to toss out to the studio, as Joe had been talking about some of the things that they wanted to work on, and with the new cadence that they're trying to work on, making sure that content is coming on a regular basis, there was one thing that I thought of today when I was putting together the show notes that I was thinking would be really kind of cool to see. So the idea that I was thinking revolved around one of the tall tales, and I believe it's number 3, where you get the wood plank from out of the Briggsy's chest that has the cutout for some of the different landmarks on islands, and you have to kind of look on the back of the wood plank to see what the letter and the number coordinates are for the island that you want to go to. If you're familiar, awesome, you already know what I'm talking about. And the thing I wanted to see, if this was possible to do, is replace messages in a bottle with some of these wood planks, create some more of them, and then add them as something that you would find as a tangible item on a beach, something that would give you the opportunity to run up, pick up the wood plank, take a look at it, see if it's close by, or see if it's something that you want to do. And then if you wanted to, you could always toss it back in the ground and not accept that quest. But if you did, then you would have to hold on to that piece of wood. That piece of wood would then become a tangible voyage, something that is still very elusive in our questing system. We have quest items, but we don't have tangible quests outside of being able to have something on a quest wheel. And that plank, for all intents and purposes, is a quest item. But if they could find a way to take that plank, that piece of wood, and turn it into an actual quest, something that is accepted once you pick it up and flip it over, it will populate in your quest wheel. But if you drop it or lose it, after a certain amount of time, that quest would then disappear from your wheel. I still have a very big wish that Rare is working on a way for us to be able to discard messages that are in our quest wheel that we don't have something that you vote on for. Having messages in a bottle are still frequent in barrels, but not so frequent that you find yourself completely overwhelmed by them. And they seem to have put a bit of a pause on accepting them when you go to kind of spam and grab a bunch of stuff. But I love the idea of there being a tangible quest item that isn't really something that pops up in your quest wheel, but it's still something that you have to keep a handle on to be, and I mean that in the strictest sense. You have to actually hold on to it to be able to see where you have to go and where the treasure is going to be. And that way, if someone finds that on your ship, if it floats up to the surface, then they would then have a quest that you have and could go and get that treasure. And if the treasure is worth it for them, then you might know where they're going and could actually head back to take it back from them, or at least the treasure, and kill them as a result. All right, pirates. Next up on today's docket is going to be my interview with Aaron Nielsen Pikaaroon over at Rare Studios. He used to be a community member and a deckhand on the forums. He still is technically a deckhand, but he has since started working for Rare. And because of that, he's got a very interesting story to tell. And we took about 2 hours and 40 minutes and recorded all of our conversation, not only about him and his experience with gaming and growing up, but the decisions that led to him getting to the point where he's at now. He does a great job explaining it, and you'll probably find some interesting facts out about him. And there's actually a Easter egg in the game for him as well, too, that we talk about, too. So if you want to find out a little bit more about him and some of his adventures with Sea of Thieves, I highly encourage you to listen to all of it. The first hour is going to be on this episode following this bit of the podcast. The rest of it is something that I'm going to be releasing later on this week, so that you get a chance to listen to this, and then you get the second or third parts later on. I haven't quite decided how much I want to release in one chunk. I know a lot of people listen to other podcasts, and I typically keep these things around an hour to an hour and a half, depending on how much content there is. But with 2 hours and 40 minutes, I can't justify putting it all in one chunk. So I'm going to be releasing the rest of the interview as bonus episodes throughout this week so that you can listen to them at your leisure. This first bit should be a little bit about some interesting things that he did back home before actually moving to England. And then the later half will be talking more about the community, the game, the actual... We talk a lot about the game industry, and then we talk a lot about Nintendo as well, too, because we found out that he and I are actually huge Nintendo fans as well, too. So we spend a good portion of our conversation really drilling into our thoughts and hopes, as well as some of the things that we like and dislike about not only the gaming industry, but the E3 presentation for Nintendo as well, too, which is why I'm going to take some of that stuff and actually put it at the bonus episodes so that you aren't listening to too much of the interview that doesn't necessarily relate to Sea of Thieves. But because he's a community member and because he's a Rare employee, and because we had so many things in common, we really could have spent all day just chatting about stuff. So we cut it off after 2 hours and 40 minutes, and I'll have the rest out for you later on. Alrighty, so joining me now is Aaron from Pikaaroon, and he is he was, you might actually know Mr. Nielsen from Twitter, and if you don't, then there's something going on that's just wrong. But he is actually joining me today, and was a deckhand for a very long time before eventually picking up everything and moving to the UK to become a community and design intern for Rare. And I couldn't be more thrilled to have him chatting with me today. Aaron, how you doing?
Yeah, good, mate. Good. Thanks for having me on the podcast. That was a lot of fun. I enjoyed listening to someone summarize my my last couple of years in like a short paragraph. That was interesting.
Yeah.
Thanks for that.
Well, I mean, the whole reason why I wanted to bring you on, one, just because it's so awesome that you've gotten a chance to go from community member to employee, and I want to dive into that, but also you've made some pretty cool stuff in the last year regarding other companies and stuff, as far as like Nintendo and whatnot. And I wanted to kind of bring that to light, because a lot of Sea of Thieves fans may recognize you for the work that you've done as far as like the coins that you sent to Rare and your Easter egg over in Cannon Cove. But I don't know that everyone kind of follows you with all of your other endeavors and whatnot. And you've done some pretty cool stuff. So
yeah, cheers. Yeah, I guess it's one of those things like working alongside Rare and being like heavily invested in Sea of Thieves doesn't mean that I can't then involve myself in other competitions or games companies as well. So yeah, no, like anything creative, man, I'm kind of there for it. Like that's my jam. That's what I like.
Yeah,
it's what gives me a kick. So yeah, no, definitely we can dive into that sort of stuff. Where do we want to talk? Do you want to start from the start, like the early days, the beginnings, as it were?
Like David Copperfield. I wanna start from the beginning, when Aaron was born. Aaron, growing up,
yeah.
I don't actually know, but I imagine that you were probably a child of the 80s, growing into your teens in the 90s.
I was actually I'm a 90s kid. I was born 1990. So like I lived the 90s,
oh,
man.
Wow.
That's my
okay.
Yeah. So
there
29 turning 30 next year. Whoo boy.
Let me tell you right now, just starting at your 30s, everything is going to start aching, and you're going to realize just how little energy
I was hoping you were going to say life starts getting really good. Like that's where life begins, but you went with a painful route. So
I'm just being brutally honest with you.
Well, I mean, it's one of those things. Like I'm just counting the days that I lose the hair. Like my hair is starting to slowly recede, and I look forward to the day that I wake up with nothing on top. So yeah. Oh man, aging, it's great. But
yeah, I would kill.
Yeah, I guess like
I'd kill the.
What's that? Go in.
Oh, I would kill to be able to just wake up one day and not have to worry about any hair. But the lackluster fluff that's on top of my head now is the most excruciating reminder of how genetics have gone upside down on me.
Yeah, so that's why like anytime I get to choose a game character, I always make sure I put the biggest head of hair on them, just so I can live through my my avatar or my player character. That's all we can do now.
Oh, that's too funny. Yeah. See, I went the complete opposite route. Like I was like, you know what? I'm dealing with male pattern baldness. I'm going all the way. My pirate's going to be bald. He's going to be like the I just blanked on his name from Waterworld.
Oh, right. Yeah. I get who you're talking about. I also don't recall the name. But yeah. No,
can't remember his name.
You could because that's kind of getting you prepared, isn't it? Like that's you prepping for what's to happen, right? Like you get to see yourself in that state and be like, well, this is me now. So.
It's not too bad.
Yeah.
I figure if I start working out now, by the time I'm 46, it'll be a good 10 years, and I'll have working out will get me to the Jason Statham state that I need to break into the movie industry then. And then I can.
That is an awfully high bar you've set yourself, and I appreciate it. That's good.
It's the one that my wife would appreciate.
Yeah. That's it. Well, you got to set those goals. That's it. I can be honest up front that I'm never going to achieve that level of finesse. So I'm gonna leave it at that. But yeah. So I guess like let's cut like majority of that from birth. Let's cut majority out, and we'll go to kind of like the last couple of years. Actually, no, a bit of insight to me.
Yeah.
I used to, well, I lived in Australia all my life, the island called Tasmania.
Did you really?
And yeah.
Oh,
So
wow.
like,
Okay.
pretty much, well, nearly as south as you can go,
Mhm.
but New Zealand is actually a little bit lower than Tassie. Either way, it's it was, small island, and I say small. It actually does cover a good majority of the UK if you kind of overlay them, but
Mhm.
it's kind of an island living.
Interesting.
Yeah, so lived there. Did some just low end jobs, nothing really huge exciting, like nothing hugely exciting. Then I worked for Apple for a while through like a reseller, and I did that for about 10 years. So that was kind of like my biggest job.
Yeah.
After kind of you go through the series of smaller things growing up, you get you do like your takeaways and you do like paper routes and all those sort of silly jobs, right? And then you start to build up from there. So yeah, my kind of like big boy job was working for Apple, and I kind of did a few things there. Like I was in retail, then I went to management for a bit, and from management, then I moved over into a tech. So I became a computer technician.
Nice.
Or the official term was ACMT, which is an Apple Certified Macintosh Technician.
Okay.
Which is a really long way of saying a glorified tech. But yeah, so I did that for many years. But that was kind of like to pay the bills, right? Like that was just work. And it was a good job. Like it taught me a lot of skills and got me through a lot of things. So it helped me buy a house. It got me through a lot of the big adult things that happen.
Yeah.
But the passion for me was always creativity. So I was kind of like going through school. I was learning to become a cinematographer. So I was very heavily invested in video media. Did a lot of like YouTubing and stuff like that. Like, I mean, I'm sure those channels probably still exist somewhere, but I pretty much was that was the creative outlet that I would use on the weekends and of an afternoon. I've pretty much done, as far as like creative mediums go, I've pretty much dipped my toe into everything. I've done podcasting, photography, videography, graphic design. I've done website design. I've done pretty much like if you can think of a section, probably the only thing I could say with confidence that I haven't done is music. I'm just not that way inclined.
Yeah.
So
interesting how that is.
Yeah, right. Like you kind of get like there's some strengths and then there's definitely like weaknesses. But yeah, for me, music's one of them. So like that was it. Like I would kind of dip my toe in a project every now and then, and do throughout those 10 years of working for Apple. Every couple of years, I'd probably move on to a different type of creative project to try and see, I suppose, what fits me, like what fits the mold, what I actually enjoy doing.
Yeah.
The crazy thing about that is like games and game design didn't really occur to me until 4 years ago, I want to say. So like let's go 3, probably closer to 3. That's kind of where I started doing game design for a board game and a card game, kind of back to back.
Interesting.
My friends and I were really into board games, and so we kind of were like, well, why don't we make our own? And this is kind of where Kickstarter was really popular.
Yeah.
And so we were like, yeah, we could do that too, right? Like we can be a Kickstarter.
Yeah.
So obviously that went nowhere. We started the project. It kind of was a paper prototype. We mucked around with that for some time and it just kind of fell on the wayside. So, but the developing of a game, super fascinating to me. I loved it. It was just, it kind of was a bit of everything as far as the creative elements. Like it has a bit of graphic design in there. It has like creative thinking and storytelling and all that sort of stuff as well. So
Yeah.
I started sitting there going like, holy shit, like games can essentially tick a lot of these other boxes that I've been doing before, but it puts it in a place that I'm like having a lot of fun with. And obviously as well, big gamer, I love video games.
Yeah.
But it just never occurred to me that you could make them as well.
Yeah.
Like it's
So
you kind of oh sorry, you go. Yep.
Oh no, I was actually, because you bring up being a big gamer, and I mean a lot of people know you as far as like Sea of Thieves goes, and your love for Rare. How far back does your gaming go?
Yeah, I grew up on Nintendo, so like that's as I guess for many that's where it's at. Like for me, I was a '90s kid, so by the time I was actually able to play games, I had a Nintendo console in my hand, like a controller in my hands.
Nice.
My older brother became the PlayStation head, so he pretty much would always get the PlayStation console. I would always get the Nintendo console. We kind of shared, like we didn't really have a very good sharing like mindset, but I did get to kind of dabble in PlayStation's world, and my brother would come over and play in Nintendo's world. But we were very kind of distinct in those two areas. Like we divided. So yeah, for me, like Super Nintendo was kind of starting point. Moved into N64, then into GameCube, which is the best console ever made. To this day,
I will agree with you on that. It is beautiful, and tiny, and elegant.
In that it's just like everything about it, like the aesthetic, just the games library on it was also very good. It just had a criminally short lifespan.
Yes.
And it's like the console that I collect to this day. So I have like think 3 or 4 of the GameCubes back home in Australia, and I'm trying to kind of slowly make my way through the color range.
Nice.
Yeah, it's a fun one. But yeah, like and with those consoles, that kind of put me onto Rare, right? Like all of Rare's library, the rich history of Rare. But if I'm honest with you, the growing up and playing those games, I was the kind of kid that didn't look at the name behind the game. Like I wasn't sitting there going like, I'm going to like this game because Rare made it, or I'm going to like this game because, you know, developer X made it. I was pretty much like, this game looks cool, I'm going to play it.
Yeah.
But you would see the logo keep popping up on these screens, but I would never look at it past that. Like it's kind of one of those things. Like it's a lot different nowadays. Like people know developers now, but back in the early days of gaming, it's like you didn't know who made them, you didn't know who was behind them, or cared who was behind them, really.
Yeah.
Like,
well, I think
it's different, right?
Yeah, I think a lot of that comes down to just kind of growing up over time and learning. You know, when you're a child, you watch The Wizard of Oz and you think of how fantastical that world is and all the different creatures and people that Dorothy is dealing with. And it's not until the end of that journey, as she progresses through her adventure there, that she realizes that everything is just a giant facade for something else. And you know, as you're growing up, you see all these great games and you just understand that the content is there. And it's not until you get older that you start to realize that there are people associated with that content, and even deeper, that those people work for a company, and that company has a lineage of content that you've been enjoying this whole time. And I definitely remember realizing at one point in my life, like every single movie that I loved was tied to Steven Spielberg and John Williams or Tim Burton. Yep. And I'm just like, man, I didn't realize, you know, that I love Edward Scissorhands so much, but he also did Batman, and I love that as well. And just seeing all the different films and stuff. And I definitely had that same moment too, when I started to pay more attention to who's making the games than what the game genres were. And it wasn't, it was
exactly
because of my childhood that I latched so heavily onto certain franchises that I started to pay more attention to, like, you know, Koji Kondo is the man who made most of my video game music life growing up.
Yeah.
So
that's it. And I guess, like, as well now, for me, shopping for new games, I'm kind of actually looking at studios. Like, I'm looking at companies that I know make good games or games that I've enjoyed in the past. So like that now as an adult, that is how I kind of like find out about new games. Like I kind of would be looking forward to these companies. Whereas like, yeah, like child and teenager Aaron was pretty much just waiting for the release dates of these games. When they came out, I would go to the shop, look at the wall and say, that looks cool, grab the game and go.
Mhm.
Whereas like, I guess now in this kind of more modern and internet age, I can, everyone's kind of looking forward at the upcomings. Like we all know what's coming through the door.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's a weird, it's interesting, that kind of transitional thing. But yeah, you're right. Like, I guess it's, we're consuming the content at that age, but we don't really care about the makers of those things, right? And then eventually you start to see the patterns. You start to see like, oh, this company keeps making these games or whatever, right? So
Yeah.
Like Nintendo definitely introduced me to Rare, but I did not know who Rare were or what Rare was until much later in life.
Yeah.
And even like with the release of Rare Replay, that kind of like gave me further education onto Rare's history. Like I was unaware of a lot of the titles that they made before the N64, or like the kind of more 8-bit or 16-bit side-scrolling stuff. Like I had absolutely no idea that was even in their repertoire, like their library. So
super interesting too. And that just recently, I think, came out on Game Pass too. I think this last week it did just come out on for consoles at least. I haven't gotten a chance to play it on PC yet, but I'm hoping that changes.
For sure, that would be cool.
So
so yeah, basically, like all I was going to say is kind of like that's where I began, right? Like Nintendo was my push through. So I've enjoyed games because of Nintendo. Just everything they kind of do. I like Nintendo, although as a company do a very like a whole bunch of weird things. Like they have a lot of weird choices.
Yeah.
They can do no wrong by me. Like everything they create as far as a game concept, there's always something valuable to take out of their games. Like even if a game isn't necessarily good or it doesn't get reviewed well, I think that if you look at a Nintendo title, there's always something or there's an element inside it that is good. Like there's a design choice, there's something musically awesome about it, there's visually it's pleasing. Like they always have something that you can take away from them. And yeah, just their absolute lineage, the history of them is just like mind blowing.
They're exceptionally good at finding the fun in a game and using that as the foundation for where they want to build each IP off of, and it really is beautiful. And I know. So there's a couple things that I definitely wanted to talk to you about, and since we're on Nintendo, I wanted to ask you a little bit more about your Nintendo Labo contest, because I was just floored by this. And if anyone that doesn't know, just to give you a little bit of heads up, in Australia, Nintendo was doing a Labo contest for custom Labo creations, where you would actually go and build a game using the Nintendo Labo software and submit your entry, and they would judge it based on that. And Aaron, you went all out, in my opinion. I think you deserved first place for this, but
thanks, dude.
You made a poltergust from Luigi's Mansion with an actual functioning vacuum, kind of like you used the sensors and the IR sensors on it. You actually made ghosts that you can capture, and even like the Switch screen itself has a display to show you how full the vacuum is when you actually capture the ghosts. And I'm just curious, like, how much time did it kind of take you to build this poltergust?
So yeah, that competition was a lot of fun, man. Like that was it last year or the year before? Oh my god, I can't remember.
It was last year for sure, and I want to say that it was
awesome.
It was probably around March to April, because that was when their first line of Labo was coming out. And
there we go. So yeah, like I guess this is one of those things, right? Like the the competition was announced, and I was like, I kind of thought to myself, that sounds like a bit of fun. I could probably get in on that. And then the grand prize was kind of, reason enough to try it.
Mm-hmm.
Being able to get like a Nintendo Switch console that looked like it was made of cardboard, I was like, that yes, I'm in. So thankfully, I'd already picked up Labo at this point. Like I bought it to see what it was like. I actually made some of the kits with my nephew, who really enjoyed that process. So that was very cool.
Nice.
And so I already had the kit, and I had been tampering and tinkering around with the Toy-Con Garage, which is the kind of like the programming game making aspect of it. It's actually quite powerful. Like, hats off to Nintendo. This is kind of like they always thinking outside of the literal
cardboard box.
Like cardboard box. Like, yeah, right. Like they have taken programming language, and they've taken game logic, and they've made it into kind of like a bite-sized, easily consumed what I want to say, like a program or a setup, so that basically anybody could come in, drag a few things on a screen, and make games. And I think that was like, yeah, extremely powerful.
It's kind of like a WYSIWYG interface, where it's like what you see is what you get. You move what you need to there, and you create what you have to in little blocks, and everything's very, very visual. It's easy to kind of decipher like what's going on. It kind of looks like an electrical schematic as far as connecting different objects.
Yeah, that's
to each
it. Like,
other.
it's all just wires and grid boxes and stuff like that. So, but yeah, so I was kind of like, I'd already tinkered with that, but I was like, okay, I've decided I'm going to make this thing. So I sat down, and pretty much the starting point was like just playing with what was in there. So
yeah,
I'd throw sounds in, and I'd play the sounds, and I'd change the key or the note, and I'd keep like listening to what was there. And based on the sounds, I was like, how can I build a mechanic around these things? Because part of it was like, I could probably go and just make the mechanics happen, but then like, if I can't make it sound like the thing that I'm trying to make, I don't think it'll sell, or like it won't make sense. So I started the project with sound. I was like, all right, let's find the sounds that I like and things that can push me forward in what I'm actually going to make here, because I had no idea.
Wow.
That's where I came across the sound that was kind of like a vacuum cleaner.
Yeah.
Like, it was essentially a high-pitched, sped-up like racing car sound or something, and it just was on repeat, so it kind of made like a cycling sound.
Yeah.
And then I found the giggles, like the really high-pitched giggles, and I was like, oh, that kind of sounds like a ghost, like a laughing ghost. And I was like, okay, so we've got like a vacuum, we've got the ghost, and I instantly thought Luigi's Mansion.
Yeah.
Right, like, love Luigi's Mansion. And I was like, how do I do this? So started off getting the vacuum cleaner to work via a command. Then I was like, cool, that works. Thinking visually on like internally, I was thinking, okay, I've got the sound, I need to make it happen in a box, right? And then I was like, cool, now I can catch the ghosts. I got to make that work inside the box. And so the actual making of the game took 2 days.
Wow.
2-3 days maybe. Like that was easy. The lengthiest part of that project was making the cardboard box. It's like getting the cardboard together, getting it all to fit, making sure the triggers work with the game.
Yeah.
Housing the console in there safely, painting the whole thing. Like, it was a lot of dressing and a lot of visual fluff.
Yeah.
Like, obviously the cardboard itself isn't making the game. The game is built into the Joy-Con and the console itself. But when you kind of then throw all those elements together, then it feels like an experience.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was a lot of fun. I unfortunately didn't come first. I came second place, which is still like awesome, and hats off to the person who did come first. Actually, they did quite a good job
I guess.
with their project. But basically, the second place win got me a pair of Joy-Con that feel and look like cardboard. And when I say feel like cardboard, I like legitimately the texture on the Joy-Con themselves feels weird, like it's different feeling material. And so when you hold it, it very much is like, wow, that kind of looks and feels like cardboard.
Huh.
So no idea how they've done it, but like very cool. And it came with a trophy, so you could connect the Joy-Con to either side of the trophy, and they kind of become the handles of the trophy.
Oh, that's cute.
Which I thought was, I thought so too.
That's so adorable.
And what else? And then they gave me like a certificate and kind of like a thank you letter and stuff like that. So that was cool. The trophy and the Joy-Con are securely and safely packed up back in Australia, so I won't be able to see them for some time. But they're there, and again,
That's
man,
cool.
like that was a good fun project, and it kind of was a good thing to get into because it was another way of like doing game design, right? Like that was building something from nothing and coming up with an experience. Although, like if you watch the video, you can kind of see it's a little like, it's not overly in depth, but like it's clever, and on the moving components, like all the pieces put together creates a thing. So
yeah, and the interesting thing that I thought about that is you mentioned something that really kind of made my mind kind of go to a different train of thought when you talk about how the programming itself was very basic, or not necessarily basic, but very easy to put together over the course of a couple of days, and that
it's like approachable, right?
Yeah. And you talked about how much labor went into the making of the game versus the making of the actual Poltergust. It's funny because it made me think about some of the videos that Rare's put out recently about their Unity prototypes for Sea of Thieves, and how everything that they have in there is very rudimentary. It's very basic, so that they're not wasting too much time making a lot of stuff that they don't necessarily need to test out mechanics. And both of you kind of went around the same approach of, getting an idea for what you want as far as like building it off of your case sound, in their case a pirate game. And once they had the prototypes, and once you had those prototypes, you knew that the philosophy of what you're doing with sound, and you built on all of the decorations on top of that to really kind of flesh it out. And it's interesting to see the parallels between what you did with that contest and just that one simple setup, so that you could try and win a really cool grand prize, and what the reason why we're coming together today to talk, which is Sea of Thieves, and how it's able to kind of say, like, even starting out as a very basic game designer, all you necessarily need from the beginning is a small little bits of foundation to kind of build upon. And then once you have something that's fun and interesting, then you can kind of build up on top of that to actually make a full-fledged game.
Yeah, I think a lot of good game design comes down to like prototyping, like doing a lot of prototyping.
Yeah.
Like and I think that's kind of where the route that Rare took. Like I wasn't there obviously for that duration of the development, but like looking at it, it's obvious that they basically went into Unity. They took a lot of like they connected together a lot of like small and quick mechanics. They didn't make it visually pleasing. They didn't go through and like spend the time to pretty it up, right? Like they just kept building and kept trying new things, and that was the kind of playful aspect of it. Like they were basically like, does this thing connect with this thing? And they just kept going and going and going and packing into this product till they found what it was that they were trying to make, which is like what Sea of Thieves basically became.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what I did, right? Like you iterate, you prototype, you iterate, and then the game feel is what takes the longest, I would say. Like coming up with what a game is, it shouldn't take that long, really. Like if you start to kind of piece together products or mechanics, you can create a game, a side-scrolling shoot 'em up, whatever. Like you pretty much take the things and you go, that is what the game is, but then how does it feel? That's where the length comes in. So you've got to think about like emotions, you've got to think about like the visual and the sound and all that sort of stuff, and then that's where like the polish comes in, but also like it can really elevate a game from just like the very core mechanics of it.
Yeah. And
so that's kind of the same deal, right? Like I guess that's a pretty good thing, right? Like a analogy. Like the game aspect for me in that project took a couple of days, but then I spent maybe 2 or 3 times that length, or even more, in actually building the visual look of it, right?
Yeah.
So it kind of it makes sense. Yeah, that's true. So, but yeah,
and this is something that you're kind of looking to actually gain from your experience with Rare, right? You're looking to actually get more kind of experience working on building game and designing games, and kind of bridging that with the work that you're doing on the community side of it too, right? This is kind of your goal for what you wanted to do to go out there.
Definitely.
Can you kind of explain what it was like applying for Rare, and I'm really curious, like, what was the point in the last year that you decided that you wanted to move to England to work for Rare?
Yeah, right. Okay, so that's it's an interesting story. I'll try and quickly breeze past some of the origins of it, because I think that's kind of common knowledge at this point. Like, a few people are aware of it, and if not, hopefully the footnote here will make sense. But basically, yeah, my kind of early days with Rare was like, I saw Sea of Thieves at E3 is it 2016 now?
I think it
was
would have been 2016, yeah.
And as soon as I saw it, the first thing I did was I jumped online. I searched the name, like E3 was still happening, and I searched for Sea of Thieves. I found the forums, logged into the forums, and was like, and posted. I swear, and this is my claim to fame, I say, but I was probably the first person outside of Rare to log into the forums, which is which is a weird flex, but it's pretty much. I jumped in straight away. I created a topic being like, "Oh my god, the hype ship is running," or something like that, like just I don't know, something stupid. And that's where it started, and that's where it stayed. So then, over the years of learning more about what Sea of Thieves was, or was becoming, I was there in the community. I was commenting. I was making topics. We were speculating. We were doing all this stuff, and it was pretty much like it consumed a lot of my personal time, because it was an awesome topic, and the community was just so involved and so I guess like so vibrant. There was it was a very diverse community, but everyone got along so well. So I made a lot of good friends.
Yeah.
At one point, Mr. Cameron Thomas,
good man,
or Young Tuck, he came to me and said, "I see that you're doing a lot of stuff in the community. I wanted to know if you'd like to be involved in this program we're coming up with called the Deckhands." And I was like, "Okay, what's that?" And I mean, to be fair, at that point, all it really was like essentially community moderator. It was someone to just kind of keep an eye on the community. Someone steps out of line, moderate. So I was like, "Yeah, man, like I'm already here. I'm already kind of doing that anyway. Might as well put a title to it." So I joined forces with Cat and Knight and Runic and a few others. Like, that was kind of and One Falcon as well. So there was a few of us. We band together, and we just kind of rolled with that, and got to help Rare in that way. Fast forward a bit of time, so I was doing the Deckhand program for a while. We grew that program. More people joined in. The community kept going. The game launches, right? So the game is out. Everyone knows what Sea of Thieves is now.
Yeah.
The speculation thing kind of turns from speculation more to feedback, and turns to people suggesting things for further development.
Big surprise.
Yeah. So I'm still kind of keeping in tabs with Rare, helping them out, but my involvement in the forums did kind of slow off a little bit because life got in the way. Some big things in life were happening, so I was taking on school, like I was taking myself through design, like design courses, and I'm doing a diploma at the moment. And going through all of that, right, like all of that sort of stuff, I kind of thought to myself, right, I've been working at Apple for 10 years. And I think 10 years is enough. Like that is kind of where I'm going to close it off here. I'm kind of done with what I'm doing. I don't want to do it anymore. It's becoming too mundane, too the same. So I thought to myself, I'm going to move away And initially it was like move away within Australia. I wasn't going to just like move to another country.
Yeah.
But I was basically like, I'm ready for change. I want to do something different. So I took that, started looking around, checking things out. One of my friends, who I'm actually living with here in the UK, he was like, I'm going to move to the UK. He's like, I'm moving there. I'm going to do something different for a while. And I was like, dude, you know what? I'm going to tag along. I'm going to follow you on that path. So Rare was never part of the equation at this point. Like, it was me being like, I'm going to move away. I'm going to do something else. And pretty much through that, I kind of mentioned this to Emma, Emma Bridle, the community manager. Or she basically like chatted to me, was like, what are you doing? I'm like, oh, so I'm like planning to move to the UK next year. And it was all kind of very like high level concept at this point.
Yeah.
But I just said to her, I was like, yeah, I'm looking at moving over. And then I was like, oh, you know, by any chance, would there be any jobs going that I could potentially apply for, right? Like, I just asked the question. And I just asked if she could pull together a few job titles or something that I could get a resume for and start like pumping in applications.
Yeah.
Because I thought like, while I'm there, I might as well. But again, like, it wasn't something I was like, I'm going to the UK because I'm going to work at Rare. I was kind of like, I'll try. So anyways, Emma was like, I'm going to take that and let me have a think about it. I'll see what I can find for you and I'll come back. So she went away for a bit. Life continued on. And then it got to a point where I was like, I never actually did hear back from Emma. I should probably, you know, maybe get in contact with her and just remind her that I was still looking to see if there's any jobs. But as pretty much I'm having this thought, she gets in contact with me. And Emma was like, she's like, oh, do you have time to chat? And I was like, yeah, yeah. Like, this was probably midnight or something like that for me back home.
Yeah.
And I only just had friends leave for the night. Like, we had friends around to play like Switch games or multiplayer, some multiplayer stuff. So everyone went home and I was about to get ready for bed, but she's like, do you have a quick time to chat? And I was like, yeah, okay. So jump into a call. And she's like, hey, just wanted to, you know, talk to you in person. Well, in person, air quotes.
Right.
But like,
it's good enough.
She's like, I want to talk to. Yeah, right. Like, she goes, I want to talk to you about this. We want to offer you an internship. So the internship came to me, right? Like, I didn't actually apply for that. And cool. You know, without Emma, I definitely would not be here. So I owe her like a hell of a lot. And she's been so welcoming and just like a top person. Like, yeah, she's great. So
yeah, she's aces.
Basically, she's like, okay, we want to offer you this internship. It's a design and community internship, which is very cool. And it pretty much like I couldn't believe it, right? Like, that was unheard of. I wasn't expecting to have that that offer come to me at that point, because it was one of those things, right? Like, obviously in the real world, you apply for a job, you put your name forward for that job, and then you have to go through a series of things, right?
Yeah, there's a big process to it.
Yeah, but like, having it just offered up front, like, I was like, what? That's so weird, but also very exciting. But then I thought about it afterwards, and it's like, well, no, my job interview was the last 2 years. My job interview was like working alongside Rare inside the community, you know, in that capacity. So they knew what I was capable of. They knew what I had to offer. So it kind of made sense in a way that they didn't go through an interview process. Like, they essentially already had that knowledge on me.
Just to kind of take a moment to kind of like, I just want to emphasize the fact that you being a deckhand and moderating the forums, even in a lower state where you're having to go to school and stuff, you're literally taking on a lot of responsibility that would go to a community manager at any company, and making sure that you're helping take care of the health and the morale of a community for a game that it's literally, you're just really passionate about it. You're basically interning for them without actually having like the paycheck for it. So in a sense, like them you saying that, you know, you've been kind of interviewing for them. You've been doing a lot more than just interviewing for them for the last couple of years. I don't want to undercut the fact that the amount of effort that goes into being a deckhand is rather high, in my opinion, and takes a lot of dedication to maintaining that status and keeping up on forums and still having fun over the course of the last 2 years to make sure.
Oh, for sure. Yeah,
So
definitely. And like, yeah, appreciate you saying that, dude. That's it's really kind. The again, I guess you're right. Like it is a fair lot, like a lot of work, but to all the people that are doing that, like
it's fun.
they do it for the love.
Yeah.
It's like they're doing it because it's enjoyable. You know, there's highs and lows and everything, but like it's continuously like way more engaging and way more fun than it is bad. So yeah, it's good. And yeah, so I guess that was kind of it. Like the rest is history after that. Like the internship offer came in. I couldn't talk about it for a while actually because I was trying to get my visa all lined up and squared off.
Yep.
And I was like, there's no point me telling everyone that I'm going to go work for Rare if I can't end up going to the country. So like I had to wait until the visa and everything came through. Once those things were locked in and it was guaranteed that I was going to a different country and that it was happening, I was like, right now I can talk about it.
Yeah.
So my kind of role being split into two means that I get to do both things, right? Like I get to do community, which is what I've always been doing, but Emma realized, like basically knew that like design was what I was interested in, so she was able to get me a position in there as well, so I can go between the two. I'm getting to experience both ends. Everything's school. Like I'm learning every day. It's a lot of fun.
It sounds absolutely amazing. I mean, ever since I found out about the game, you know, I was in, and I feel bad too because I was late to the party because I just wasn't. I didn't have my eyes on Xbox during those years. It was solely on Nintendo and Blizzard. So like I missed out on the fervor that was this game coming into fruition before launch. And now that I'm engrossed in this community, in this company, it's amazing just the amount of good salt of the earth people that I meet on a daily basis or chat with on occasion that work at the company or are in the community, and to get the opportunity to go from deckhand. And not just a deckhand. I mean, you've actually gone to the trouble of getting coins with the Rare logo and Sea of Thieves on the front. You sent a whole bunch of these gold coins to Rare as a gift, just as a thank you for what they've done. And yeah. They commemorated you in game at Cannon Cove. You have a coin with a dagger in it on a barrel that has your gamer tag, Pikaaroon, and it's so cool. Like I just don't see that with other companies. I don't see, you know, I think the Easter egg I can name off the top of my head that is in a game that I've played recently is the tribute to Robin Williams in Cataclysm for World of Warcraft. And that he's like an A-list movie star that passed away. But you have an Easter egg in a game that is
regular old Joe, just you know, some dude from Tassie. Yeah.
Just and it's in there, and it's such a cool thing to be able to see that. And so many people have gotten their gamer tags or their Easter eggs. People that have brought some light and some joy to the community, and having Rare something do something cool like that is it's just almost unheard of, in my opinion. I don't hear other companies that are just like, we love our community so much that we want to immortalize them in the game that they love to play. And that's such a cool thing. And to be able to sit down with them on a day-to-day basis and even on the weekends to get to spend time with them. Like I envy the opportunity to have a working relationship with people that I love spending time with, that I would want to spend all of my time with on something that I love. So I could not be more happier for you for being able to get this opportunity, because it's something that I think a lot of us would love to do.
For sure, man. Like I obviously I'm not gonna like I don't take this position for granted. Like I realize on how essentially how lucky I am to not only be able to work alongside these people, but also get to work on something that I also enjoy. So, like, there is literally no negatives to this entire situation, and like, I'm extremely fortunate, and it's kind of in some ways as well. Like, I look at that and I go, like, am I worthy of that? Like, I kind of, you do that whole like imposter syndrome thing, right?
Yep.
Where you kind of go like, I should not be where I am right now,
Yeah.
but obviously they've seen something in me to offer me that opportunity, and so I'm not gonna waste that time. I'm gonna make sure that I'm gonna make the most of the time they've given me, so then that way I can grow and develop my own skill set. So yeah, and it's like back to your point on the player immortalization stuff, like that program to me is very very near and dear to my heart. So it's something I take a lot of I pay a lot of attention to that aspect of the game, because I guess like
You
at the time when I found out I was in the game, that was my greatest achievement. That was my greatest gaming achievement. Like
yeah.
um you sometimes sit there and you see people be like, my greatest gaming achievement is like defeating this really hard boss, or like getting a platinum trophy on this game, or doing all these sort of things. For me, it was like having my game my name or my representation in a video game.
Yeah.
And I was like, it was crazy, because come the time, like initially I sent a coin to Jonate directly. So to go back on that story a bit further, like
Yeah.
this was the coin thing was kind of a two-parter. So the initial coin was a lot bigger. It was kind of more like a medal, essentially, like the size of a medal.
Okay.
And the idea for that kind of came in because a friend of mine was going to Comic-Con, and Sea of Thieves had a panel there, which is one of the first panels they did on the game. And so my friend was like heading over, and he's like, "Oh, I'm gonna go check out the Sea of Thieves thing." And I was like, me as a fan was very like much like, "Oh man, I wish I could be there." I thought maybe I could do something. I could make something for the developers. I could give them a gift or say thank you.
Yeah.
So and use him as courier, so like he can get it there.
Nice.
So I pretty much had a 3D printer. I was like, I was hardly using it at the time. Like it was just kind of sitting there. So I thought, oh, maybe I could do something with the 3D printer. And so I started like, looking at things to do, like what could I build? Something quick, because I've got to do it in like a week,
Right.
because my mate's flying away. This was very last minute, right? Anyways, I jumped into Maya and started like building stuff in 3D, and then the idea for the coin came in. So I started like playing around with it, and to be fair, like the model was quite simple, but I drew it and designed it in a way that it would fit the theming for Sea of Thieves, like having the cracks in the sides of the coin and being a bit wonky and all that sort of stuff, like making sure that it kind of fit the aesthetic still.
Yeah.
So I did that. I drew it on paper, like I got a pen, and I basically with like a permanent marker drew the shape, scanned the shape into the computer, and then built it in 3D. So I basically was sketching over my own drawings. Once I'd done,
that's a pretty common thing.
Sorry, you go.
It's funny too, because when I was going to college, that was exactly what we did with Mayos. We literally would draw out our character design, scan it into a computer, put it on a couple planes, and then we would model everything around that. Yep. And it's funny how
it's the best way to do it, right? Because like that's the reference. Like you're using reference material to make sure that the product stays true to what you were thinking, like what you're designing.
Helps a lot.
But yeah, so like, I mean, this was very low key. It's like a very simple thing, but like it was a lot of fun to do that. I printed the coin. I printed the coin way too big. Like I said, it was like a medal. It wasn't really a coin at all. It's like a medallion almost. So I printed that. I sanded it slightly, but I didn't pay enough attention to the sanding of it. And then I painted it, and I got one of my best friends, to help me with the painting, because he was very much into like the Warhammer painting
cool.
and stuff like that. So
Yeah.
he kind of helped me there because I that was not really my strength as well. Like paint and stuff, I could just slap some paint on it, but it probably wouldn't have come out as nice as it did.
Yeah.
So got him to help. Handed it to my friend. My friend went to the Comic-Con panel and handed it to Joe Neat. Joe Neat was like, thank you so much to my friend. My friend basically took a photo, told me all about the interaction, and I was just like, man, that's so cool. Like I've just given a gift to the developers. And that was that. Like that was the end of it. They posted the picture of it on social media, so it's out on Twitter. And that was like, oh my God, that Rare shared a thing that I made. That's so cool. Like, yeah, that was another one of those like, oh my God moments, right? Like a company has just shared my name and shared my product on a channel, like on an official channel. Right. And I was like, oh my God, that's so cool. And then, so that was like highlight number one. And then like later on, it was like highlight changed to being the fact that I was in the game. So, but yeah, then some months went by. The alphas, the betas, and all that sort of stuff were out. And so I was playing in an internal session. I forget which, and it probably doesn't matter which one it was, but I was playing in a session, and as deckhands, we were told that basically some of these Easter eggs, like these player immortalizations existed, right? And we had seen it before. Like it was common knowledge at this point that Rare was doing it. So they had like the Hallower one on the Ferry of the Damned, which was one of the first things. I think that was actually the first one that they did. And then they kind of went on and did like 2 or 3 others after that, right? So they had already set this kind of language that this was something they were doing. And so yeah, as we had a direct connection to the developers, we were told that there was a couple that had not been found yet, and they'd been in the game for a while. And we're like, oh, really? Like that was like really quite cool. We're like, oh my God, like there's something out there that no one's found yet. We need to find it, right?
That's so funny because that's actually something that just happened this last week.
Exactly. And this is why I love that it still happens, right? Yeah. Like it's so cool. And so and then that's why exactly like the recent event of this, like where we've had like 3 or 4 new ones added in and the community went wild in finding them. Yeah. Like the fact that that is still happening and the fact that those people got to then experience what I experienced, it brought me back to that moment. And man, it like I kind of, in a way, I actually kind of teared up a little bit. I was like, oh man, that is so cool. Like I love that these guys are having such a good time with it. Oh yeah. But yeah, so like back to where I was at with it, right? Basically, we were like, it's time. We're going to find this thing. So we internally, like us deckhands, we wrote up a bunch of islander names. We wrote up a bunch of places, and then we basically went on the hunt. And every time we scanned an island, like we would like scour it top to bottom. We would tick off the island in the list, and we're like, right, I've checked out this island. Don't worry about that island. Go back to the next one. All right. So we're trying to like cover the entire world and see what we could find. Anyways, it just so happened that I discovered my own Easter egg.
That's cool.
Yeah, man. Like no one else. Like that was one of the things, right? Because like this was all internal stuff, so it was like a very low population playing. Like there was not many people playing it at that point. So, I was playing with a good friend of mine, Runic, who was part of the deckhand program back in the day. A New Zealander as well, so he was on my time zone.
Works out.
So him and I played together, and we were like helping each other out to try and find these Easter eggs that existed. And yeah, so we're on Cannon Cove. We're scanning around, checking the place out. And I had been in the cave inside Cannon Cove so many times by this point. Like I had run in there and ran out, often like over and over again. So honestly, I have no idea how I did not find this up until now. But this last time I was like, okay, scanning the walls, scanning the rocks, just looking at everything. And then I walk up to the barrel in the middle and I see this little dagger and I'm like, oh, that's interesting. So I raise my lantern to find the Aaron Lee, which at the time was my gamer tag and is still my social handle on Twitter.
That's so cool.
saw the Aaron Lee sketched into this barrel. And then I looked closer at the dagger and I could see the little gold coin that I'd just made months prior for Joe Neat. And I was like, oh my God, I stopped. I went silent. My heart started racing and I was like, no way, dude. Like, and I'm pretty sure I cried. I'm pretty sure I cried. I can't remember, but like, I just remember being overwhelmed with like emotion. And I'm sitting there like, holy crap. And I said to Runic, because he was still searching the island somewhere else, I was like, Runic, dude. And he's like, what? And I'm like, I found it. And he's like, because like I couldn't talk. Like I was just struggling so hard to like get words out. And he's like, where are you? Where are you? I'm like, in the cave in the center of the island. And so he comes rushing in and he looks at it and he goes, no way, dude. And I'm just like, I know. Like, oh my God. And so we just like fanboyed for a while. And like, yeah, had never experienced something like that. Like that was was overwhelming.
I just got to see.
So like with that, right? We couldn't sorry, just to close that off. Basically, like I found it, but I couldn't tell anyone about it because it was internal testing. I couldn't take images. I couldn't do anything with it. I basically just had to sit on the fact that I had the singing game. But thankfully, sometime after that, Rare did like a public slideshow event. I forget what it was. It was like an Xbox event, I think, and they pretty much took a slideshow of all the different player immortalizations that they had done at the time, and then they put a little context on it and they showed it. So as that image was then shown publicly, I basically was able to take that image that they took and extract it and then start showing it off on social media. So that was when I could tell like my friends and family and stuff on like Facebook and all that sort of stuff. So I had to wait like a few months for that to happen. So it was the hardest thing to like keep that thing quiet. But like, oh man, it was real good. Anyways, you were about to say?
Oh man, I just got to see that experience from like I've gotten a chance to see it from a couple people, but I was watching Chalk Muju's stream the other day, and it was her first excursion out since the update, and she was heading out to actually go see the Allegiant, the ship on the finest trading post, and to see her expression, like as her and her father like got to the actual sea post, and to see it, it was so beautiful and so amazing. I was so excited for her, and I got to see I got to kind of talk to Captain J from the Crow's Nest as well. Like finally getting him to see his Crow's Nest logo in the game. It was so beautiful of an event to see them just so elated that that they'd gotten their mark in the game, and that they had gotten a chance to be immortalized as such an awesome thing.
Yeah, man, it is just like, it's surreal, and I'm actually upset that I missed that Chok Muju moment. I'm gonna have to go look at that up and see if I can find it.
Yeah.
Because that one to me was also like it was a bit special, because the team at Rare really appreciated that Allegiant ship. Like it kind of came in at a time where like there was fires happening everywhere. Like everyone was go, get this thing ready for the anniversary update, right?
Oh yeah.
And so like everyone's hustling, bustling, but then it gave us all the time to like be able to slow down and go, oh my God, and then read through the stories and the thanks and all that sort of stuff from the community. Like it meant a lot to the studio. You could tell that, like anybody that kind of interacted with the ship and had a look at it, just very, very grateful.
Yeah, she did a great job making it and kind of coalescing all the stories and stuff, and the community really came together and made sure that whatever it took, it got to Rare in time, and it's
for sure
such a cool moment. Go ahead.
Yeah, it was one of those things like when like part of some conversations that I was a part of and things that I got to discuss, we talked about like it was obvious that we wanted to do something for Chok Muju. We wanted to represent that community sentiment in the game. Like, it was obviously a big thing. It was a lot of people got that ship into the studio. Like, it took not just one person, but like many. So
Yeah.
we were like, we have to, obviously we have to do something for this. Like, that's a given. There was discussions where we were like, do we put Chokmuju's name on the ship? Do we put the Allegiant on the ship? And we're like, that discussion took place because we were like, well, obviously Chokmuju is the person who made the ship. Like, let's put her name directly in the game.
Yeah.
But we thought, because of the amount of people that were involved, this was not only a thank you to her, it was a thank you to all of those people, even though we don't directly reference anybody specific. So we went with the ship name and it was good that she gave a ship name, to be honest, so that kind of made that decision easier.
Yeah, gave you options.
But yeah, so like we were like, let's, on the plaque that goes to the ship model, we'll put the name of the ship. Like, that makes sense, right? It's the way to do it. And so, yeah, although, it doesn't have her name directly on it, like, to the community that was involved in that event and to the people that want to seek out that information to learn more about what it was and what it is, they will then instantly find out that it's to do with her, and they'll know exactly like what went in making that and making it a possibility, right? So yeah, we thought that was more powerful. Like, that was something that like the studio essentially agreed on. That was the way to handle that one. But yeah, no, I'm so glad that she enjoyed that and that the community also did. Yeah, it was good.
Yeah, and you've done a great job of updating the list of all the Easter eggs that are in the game so far.
I mean, only just recent. Like, I've been so slack on that list.
Well, it's to be fair, it's grown quite a bit in the last year. So. Yeah,
it's true.
But
and I guess as well, like, in the time that I wasn't updating it, it was for good reason. Like, obviously moving to a different country and starting at a game studio is probably reason enough to not, I think, keep it up to date.
I think people can forgive that. Yeah, it doesn't seem
exactly
like too big a thing. All right, pirates, that's going to do it for this episode of Keelhauled Podcast. If you made it to the end and you enjoyed the interview, don't forget the next half of that is going to be coming later on this week as a bonus episode, completely free of charge, no microtransactions. I hope you had a good time today. I hope you enjoyed this first half of the interview, plus the news that we got. One little bit that I do want to add, if you made it to the very end, I thought it was very interesting that the comics I mentioned last week suddenly disappeared off of Amazon. So if you got them, congratulations. If you didn't, we'll probably see those later on and get a little bit more information about why we got number 2 but not number 1, and if there's a 3, 4, 5, who knows how many there are. Regardless, I am excited to see what becomes of that. And I'm very interested to find out if this podcast was a result of that going down, because I went to bed and it was up, and when I woke up, people couldn't find it anymore. Kind of interesting. But regardless, again, I just want to make sure that you guys have the best information possible about Sea of Thieves and I don't muck it up too much. If you love this, if you liked it, please help me out. If you can go to iTunes, give it a rating, give it a review, let me know. There are plenty of people that have done it in the past, and if you do so, you can end up like Katie's Ace, who on June 20th gave a 5-star review. Love the content you create and all of the news that you cover. Thank you for giving Extra Side Sea of Thieves news about things like Few Comics and Halo Cosmetics. Also loved your E3 review. Keep up the good work. Ace, thank you so much for your review. I truly appreciate it. It means a lot. The next episode to come out is going to be probably around Wednesday with the rest of the interview, and then I'm going to be doing the normal Sunday episode as well. If there's any leftover information from the interview, it'll probably tie up at the end of that episode. And yeah, pirates, if you want to get a hold of me, you can always do so on Twitter at CAPT_LOGUN. You can always send me an email at CAPTLOGUN@gmail.com, and you can always reach me on Xbox. My gamer tag is CAPTAIN Logun. No spaces, just straight Captain Logan. I am so excited for this. Pirates, thank you. I love you, and I look forward to sailing with you on the Sea of Thieves.